Welcome to Doing the Work, a Naples integrated recovery podcast. My name is Brian, and this space is for anyone who's tired of surviving the same emotional and behavioral loops, whether that's anxiety, trauma, addiction, or problems in your relationships. Around here, we cut the surface level advice, no sugarcoating, no platitudes, no bumper sticker wisdom. We focus on clarity, responsibility, emotional discipline, and the courage to look at yourself honestly so that you can stop repeating the same old patterns and start living with intention instead of reaction. Let's get into it. Hi gang, thanks for listening. Today's going to be a relationship-ish episode, and this one is about patterns and why often people find themselves back in the same place or picking the same things that they know are not really great for them. This usually starts earlier than people think. They often talk about their patterns after they have already paid the price for them. After the breakup or situationship, after months of trying to get clarity from living in chaos, and I've talked about the slot machine effect of attachment of like all in, super passionate, love bombing, and then like disappearance and cold and breadcrumbing. After the relationship where you kept explaining to your friends, you know, I see something different in him or her that you guys aren't seeing. But part of you also feels less convinced, or they certainly seem like they are not convinced. And that is where that question shows up. Why do I keep choosing this type of person? Or how do I keep ending up with this kind of guy? It's usually a guy, right? It is an important question, and it usually arrives after the expensive part because by then you've already invested time, you have trained your nervous system around somebody else's inconsistency, or you've made excuses for things that probably another version of you that is more rational when you are not so connected would have recognized a problem. If somebody else was telling you, this is another thing that I do with clients is I'll have them just kind of say it out loud. And I'm like, what would you tell a friend? What would you tell a sponsee? And a lot of times they're like, I would say leave. Well, I'm not telling you to leave, but it sounds to me like you are hearing it differently when you are not the one that is in the middle of that attachment. And so that's why this conversation matters, because the real leverage is earlier. It is before the relationship becomes a story that you have to recover from, before the pattern gets dressed up in love, sexual chemistry, compassion, patience, or just trying to be open-minded about things that you know you don't want. Before you are sitting and wondering how you are tolerating a situation that would have sounded ridiculous to you. Some people think that the big danger in dating is choosing the wrong person, but I think that it is slowly cooperating with something that you are seeing and then not standing up for what you actually want. So that is what I'm going to talk about today, is these little micro paper cuts or shifts in your relationship where you keep accepting something that you don't really want and going with it until you've ended up in a place that you are very unhappy. So often this starts small, like a weird explanation, even though another part of you feels like that sounds something doesn't fit here. It could be canceling plans or a drinking pattern that you are noticing but softening, or maybe making an excuse for, or a mismatch that you feel but then you talk yourself out of it, or maybe a confidant tells you or talks you out of it. Maybe it's a moment where you're attraction to this person changes, and then you like shame yourself for noticing that something has changed. And then maybe you do what people do when they want to see something work. You build around it, or you make room for it, or you adjust your preferences, or tell yourself, well, no relationship's perfect, or you tell yourself that you're trying to be patient with somebody else's character defect if you're in recovery. Maybe you give them another chance or another 37 chances, or you focus on the good moments and use those as evidence against a pattern that is just right in your face. So the question is, what are you working around right now? Because often people say, like, why do I keep picking the same kind of person? But I think the more important question is, what do you keep working around? So focus the attention to what you started tolerating before a relationship has actually earned that kind of space for you to actually tolerate that. So I'm going to give some examples. Every human being is difficult in some way. Everybody has a cost. Everybody brings some friction or some baggage or some bullshit into a relationship. The question is whether their kind of difficult or their kind of baggage or their kind of bullshit works with your bullshit and works inside your actual life. Some people are difficult in a way that you can live with. Certainly, I hope I show up that way. I am frequently very irritated by the stupidest little stuff that really doesn't matter. When I was a teenager, a teacher saw, I think, that my path was about to be very treacherous. I think he could see how miserable I was. And he gave me this book that, of course, because I was a teenager, I didn't read, called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And I didn't read it. And then I self-medicated for 15 years with drugs and alcohol, and came across this book in my 30s and thought, my God, if I would have read this when I was like 14 or 15, I probably could have spared so much pain in my life. But, so managing triggers, I think everybody has difficult stuff, but the whole point of this show and a lot of the work that I do with people is how to live with intention. You may still have your bullshit, you may still have your triggers, but choosing a better response. Now, a lot of people, I mean, here's the problem with dating apps is you are swiping left or right or yes or no, or if you're gay and on Tinder, just an immediate block the second that somebody sends a picture of your face. People are often choosing the yes or no based on immediate first attraction. And that makes sense because we are, you want to at least be sort of attracted to your partner. And that kind of pull feels good early because it grabs your attention. You kind of want to get a text, or you want a conversation to keep going. Maybe you want to replay that first date or feel the charge and intensity. Fit moves slower. Fit shows up in how they follow through. Fit shows up in how they handle conflict. Oh man, I just saw a meme that said my favorite part of a man is a fully developed prefrontal lobe, which is your rational decision-making self part that can override when you feel angry or jealous or name the extreme emotion, and you can access higher self or better responses instead of acting out when you are upset. So fit shows up in follow through, how they handle conflict or sit in an unpleasant moment with you, or don't just ghost because things are hard. And fit shows up in whether your life is stable or chaotic. Now, I'm going to talk about some of my working around that I have done. This is not meant to become like an X bashing episode, but just to show you some patterns from my life. Now, there was one guy that I dated that when I met him, he was pretty quiet and introverted and kind of shy and, really cute. And I thought that was like, I was enamored. And I can recall the first red flags that I saw was that we went to a Christmas party. Alcohol was involved, and he came out wearing a coworker's wife's stiletto heels. And all the girls that were there were kind of laughing, and I remember clocking something right then, this reaction like, I'm like gay, right? Now the gays have got the whole fucking alphabet, like LGBTQIAZ 37. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to be kind of open to this. But something did not feel right for me because that isn't really what I am into or attracted to. But I tried to be kind of like open to this, or, hey, it's a drinking night. So it was like a supportive, open distance thing. And over time, this expanded to crop tops, so like midriff and stomach visible frequently in public, makeup, long nails, long hair, and this had really turned into a presentation of what I was not attracted to in a partner. And that's hard to say because sometimes when we would have discussions around this, it would get flattened into categories of either supportive or unsupportive, loving or rejecting, safe or unsafe, on my team or like my family. And that put pressure on the relationship. At some point, these conversations were very black and white, that I either supported and loved him or I didn't. Either accept all of it or I was abandoning him. And back then, I didn't know anything about dialectical behavioral therapy or this concept of dialectics, or two seemingly opposing truths existing at the same time. Life is more complicated than a black and white binary. You can love somebody deeply and support their right for them to be themselves and not want to put them into a box or a closet or to shame them or to make them be different, and care deeply but recognize that you're not attracted to that. You can want somebody to feel free and know that you don't want to force yourself into a relationship that doesn't fit with what you want or what you're attracted to. All of those things can exist at the same time. So that is an example of me trying to work around something. I was afraid that naming my own truth would be a rejection for him, so I kept trying to be open, more understanding, evolved, patient. But meanwhile, something in me already knew that this relationship was moving in a direction that did not work for me. And the problem was my own self-abandonment, that I kept trying to solve a fit problem by me trying to be more flexible with something that I didn't even like or want, and trying to treat my own discomfort like it was a defect in me instead of information that I needed to respect. And that is one of the ways that people get stuck, is they can feel that mismatch, but then spend the rest of the relationship trying to become the person who would be okay with it. I have like one specific memory that we were at at the pier, and for whatever reason, I was kind of walking at a distance behind him, not intentionally, but he was, long nails and crop top and long hair and all of that. And I remember seeing, because I wasn't next to his side, that like people were laughing at him and like mocking him and like pointing at him. And I was at a distance and I was like hurt and also like sad for him. And I brought it to his attention. It was a very, very unpleasant conversation. And he was like, I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. This is how I want to dress. This is how I want to do whatever. But it says more about you that you're ashamed to be with me. And it was a little bit more complicated than that, because I think I just laid out that concept of dialectics for you. Familiarity can play a role too here, because sometimes people get pulled into what they know how to survive. If you learned early that attention had to be earned, then someone who is inconsistent can feel familiar. Or if you grew up around unpredictability, emotional instability might feel very normal for you. Or if you learn to monitor somebody else's mood, then you might find yourself drawn to people who require constant reading. People dress this up with nicer words. They might call it patient or compassion or giving somebody a chance. And sometimes it is those things, but a lot of the times it is your nervous system recognizing an old role. You know how to wait. You know how to explain. You know how to have hope for somebody else or how to overfunction around somebody else's limits. And that kind of skill may have been adaptive earlier, but now it can keep you stuck, or it can keep you feeling loyal when you are abandoning yourself. It can make you feel deep while you are repeating a pattern that is not working for you. It can make you feel chosen by somebody whose actual behavior is actually harming you or costing you your peace. Another topic that is related around all of this is the corrective experience trap. That is when a person in front of you starts carrying the emotional weight of something older. So you are dating this person, and you are also at the same time trying to get a different ending for a different wound. Go back a couple of podcasts or articles, I have one about like the scoreboard and how people are often choosing being chosen. So, this time I get picked. This time somebody stays. This time my effort works. And I saw this in a different relationship. So again, this is not like Brian trying to shit on exes, but just trying to give you illustration of these different counseling concepts or relational concepts. I had an ex that I dated that about a month in told me that he had schizophrenia. And before that, first of all, I was in grad school at the time, and I had read a little bit about that condition, but it's so rare that even most therapists do not ever see that clinically or work with that. And I had just kind of experienced him as quiet and distant. And there were some moments where he had been in so much therapy, and he had quite a bit of self-awareness that I had rarely experienced. And there was one time that we had a disagreement, and it was the first time ever that he said, I didn't like my tone earlier. You didn't deserve that. And that felt like getting kicked in the head, because my dad could not ever own a mistake ever. My dad had this pattern where he would have these outbursts, or he would be unkind or say something really harsh, or like do something that was just like really wrong socially. And then rather than saying, hey, I'm sorry, I'm in a lot of pain, or hey, I got really anxious there, or I was frustrated and I shouldn't have done that, he would instead just do penance. Like, he would say something really shitty And then he would be like, hey, you guys want to go out for pizza? No, I don't want to fucking go get pizza with you. You were just acted like an asshole. So this was like the first corrective experience I had had as an adult where somebody said something shitty to me and then they corrected it with like, you didn't deserve that. My tone was harsh. That was unkind. And I like locked onto that. I made that moment carry way more weight than his larger pattern. And the larger pattern with that guy, was that he had very, very, very limited availability, which he shared with me down the road was because he was so sick that he could not hold it together more than 1 or 2 visits a week. If you know anything about that condition, got a lot of empathy for how sick people with psychosis are. But there were long stretches of distance, and that was just too hard for me. But I was like locked on to this corrective experience that I had had where somebody owned their behavior, and I had never seen that before. So another thing in this relationship was that when we had met, I think by this point I was maybe like 2 or 3 years sober, and he was also sober. So that was a big deal for me. But then I learned sober because I'm on probation. Oh, okay. Well, that's like good guardrails. Guess what? Probation ends. I'm going to start smoking a little bit of CBD. Okay. This is kind of like the first time seeing the stiletto heels. Now, when I work with clients and they say my main problem is alcohol, but I still smoke marijuana, I don't make my own recovery theirs. I don't expect everybody to be a purist. I don't love the AA shaming type lens of it has to be all or nothing. People are complex. Now, I know for me and for my own addictive wiring, I cannot open the door to CBD or anything that may potentially make me feel even 2% different, because with my wiring, there is a good chance that I might take more than I need, and then triple, and then quadruple, and then maybe a little bit of alcohol might kick this up a notch, and before I know it, like, I don't even know where that might take me. So for me, anything that makes me feel good, better, or different is a no. But I didn't want to put my own lens on somebody else. So he started smoking a little bit of CBD. And in Florida, at least, you can buy CBD that has like 2% THC or something like that. So now it's a CBD, little bit of THC. And so that kind of sounds manageable. Sidebar, eventually I worked with Collier County's sickest 100 mental health clients on what's called the FACT team. It is the highest level acuity. Most of the clients there had mood disorders and psychosis and co-occurring substance use problems. And guess what? THC exacerbates, or it elevates likelihood of psychosis, this detachment from reality that exists for people. But anyway, so this is Brian doing the pick and work around, like, okay, man, well, I don't know if I would smoke CBD, but you could smoke a little bit of CBD, I guess. And I guess I'm okay with that, even though a different part of me was like, absolutely fucking not. This is insane. I would never allow this. I would never stick around with this. I can see the train wreck coming. But I was like, maybe not, though. I don't know. Let's just watch and see. And so with his history, this marijuana created more instability, more canceled plans, more waiting, more of me trying to make sense of something that was already right in my face, while my heart felt like it was just getting like put in a blender. And I kept organizing myself around the apology, or these moments of self-awareness, or the version of him where he could name his tone and take responsibility, telling myself that's who he really is underneath all of that. And maybe it is. I did actually recently hear from him, and he told me that he was sober, which is awesome. But that distance counted, because seeing somebody 1 or 2 days a week, that's not enough for me for a connection. On-off marijuana, I can't do that. Eventually, when we did split, he told me, listen, I don't want to hurt you, but I likely see me doing this on-off pattern for the rest of my life. And oh my God, that crushed me. It was so sad because I knew I couldn't stick around and watch that. I mean, and God bless people who go to Al-Anon and have a partner who still actively drinks or uses drugs, and that they stay through that pattern. Everybody's different with your tolerance of what you can pick and work around. And for me, this is in my hierarchy of values that this is a hard fucking no. I cannot be in a relationship with somebody with a substance use problem and me also stay sober through that. Now, see, a relationship has to be built on the whole person, not these idealized moments where you see the good in somebody, but really, truly, what's the whole pattern that you are seeing? And are you actually able to live with that whole pattern? Also, something else underneath that was, it's another like very personal additional layer of why that attraction existed so much, was he looked like someone who would have ignored me earlier in life, someone who would have been out of reach, someone whose interest felt like proof that the younger version of me, the inner fat kid that was kind of ignored or just didn't really exist or that was not ever included, was finally chosen. Because of course he was gorgeous. He was an Adonis. He had a perfect body. And so all of that was like evidence of worth for me. So add in like evidence of worth plus corrective experiences, and some connection in the brain that says like, if he chose me, then something old, that old part of me is being repaired, and maybe this younger wound will get a different ending. Well, guess what, friends? That is the work. Is nobody can do that fixing for you except for you. That is the corrective experience trap, is you start relating to what the person represents. Then leaving feels bigger than leaving the relationship. It may feel like giving up on the possibility that old thing eventually gets fixed. That is why people stay after signs are very clear. They keep looking for a version that gave them hope. They remember the apology, the great conversation, the night that things felt connected. Meanwhile, the actual relationship right in front of them is giving them data, and then they are arguing the data. And this is why standards have to be clear before you want someone. Once you want somebody, your mind can become a defense attorney, can start building arguments. It can start finding exceptions. It can start saying, people are complicated, or, well, I have flaws too, or maybe this is your own avoidance. And sometimes those questions are worth asking, and other times they become a way for you to stay in something that you already understand. And so you need a hierarchy before chemistry is involved, before the ultra hot Adonis is there and your rational thinking is offline. There should be a few things that are your non-negotiables. So often when I work with clients, I have them come up with a hierarchy of values. Try this as an assignment for yourself. Come up with 10 or more things. And what are your top 3 of, if I see 1, 2, or 3, they are absolutely out. There is absolutely no repair. There's absolutely no way that I will stick around and watch or be part of these things. Then for maybe like 4, 5, and 6, what are some other very, very high preferences that are very important? You might be able to work with it, but and then for the remaining ones, probably other preferences. So with some of the examples that I have given you, for me, some of my top 3 emotional awareness, you have to be aware. You have to have that rational prefrontal cortex that is online, and the ability to deal with strong emotions without acting out like a jackass or breaking plates, or a lot of people jokingly send me toxic partner memes and stuff like that, and I do think it's funny. It's also something I would never ever participate in. The second that I see someone so dysregulated that they are calling me ugly names or talking to me like I'm a piece of trash or breaking stuff, that's it, man. Absolutely not even a second strike. You're fucking out. That's it. That is it. That is it. That is it. Go work on yourself. Hopefully you show up better in your next relationship. Number 2 might be for me, I don't mind if you have a glass of wine or a couple of beers at a barbecue, or if you smoke a joint on a Friday, but the moment that I see that you are visibly impaired and you are a different person, this is a hard no. Hard no. So think about, what are some of these things for you that are your absolute non-negotiables that you would absolutely, unquestionably not tolerate? Does your current partner do those things? If so, maybe you need to look at that full picture. I'm not telling you to leave, but I'm telling you, stop avoiding data that is right in your face. Emotional maturity is a better filter than chemistry, because chemistry tells you very little about how a person functions under pressure. Watch what happens with who that person becomes when they are frustrated, or when you tell them that you are disappointed. Watch what happens when you ask a direct question that makes them uncomfortable. Watch what happens if they are in a place where they need to take responsibility without turning themselves into a victim. Because a person can talk beautifully and clinically about trauma and then punish you in conflict, or they might have the language of boundaries and then avoid accountability. A lot of people have TikTok lingo of therapy stuff that they watched from a short, and they very much misapply it in conflict. So somebody might seem deep and very exhausting to try to build a life with. Talk is cheap. What's the behavior telling you? Last section I want to touch on is from being chosen to choosing, because a lot of people are giving too much authority to being chosen. Did they like me? Did I come on too strong? Did I message them too fast? Are they losing interest? Am I asking for too much? This sounds like an audition. Are you managing yourself for approval? Sounds like you are treating somebody else's inconsistency as a challenge that you have to overcome. Better question is this: do I want this? Do I like and do I want how this feels? Do I want the life that this relationship is creating? Do I mind how much explaining I feel like I already have to do? Do I want this version of myself that shows up around this person? That really changes the posture. Now you are choosing. A lot of people realize that they have spent years wanting to be picked by people they barely evaluated. They know how to chase, they know how to prove, they know how to wait. They have very little practice selecting. Selecting requires you to let some of that chemistry pass you by. It requires you to disappoint the fantasy earlier. It requires you to stop treating potential like a contract. Potential can be very seductive because it lets you stay attached to what could happen. It's like a slot machine. You could go to Vegas and potentially win big money. What's more likely to happen? You're going to just keep feeding cash into those slot machines, and you're going to continue with near misses. 7, 7. Oh, just missed it. It almost could have been. The pattern tells you what is happening. The pattern deserves more weight. And the work here is simple and uncomfortable. Believe what is repeating and what's right in front of you. If someone keeps disappearing, count that. If somebody keeps using drugs, count that. If somebody keeps saying that they are going to work on themselves and that they are going to be a better person, but then they are explosive in conflict, count that. If somebody is avoiding conversations, count that. And if they are making you feel unsafe or unstable, count that. The goal is to stop turning every clear pattern into a court case. You can still have compassion for somebody. You can understand somebody's pain. You can see their good, and you can leave. You can also decide that somebody else's painful story is real and that the relationship is not right for you. That's where a lot of people get stuck because they think that understanding or caring or having compassion for somebody obligates them to stay, or that seeing somebody else's wound means that you have to keep making room for them to keep creating damage in your life. Understanding gives you information. It does not give away your life and your choices. So the next time that you feel that pull, slow down. Ask yourself what you are already working around. Ask yourself what you have already explained, or what might you tell a friend if they were in that same situation. Ask what this is costing you when that chemistry has worn off. The first red flag usually costs less than the 10th. Most people already have enough information. They just keep negotiating with what's right in front of them. You don't need sharper instincts. You need to give the instincts that you already have a vote. And that, friends, is doing the work. Thanks for spending the time with me. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with somebody who may need to hear it. Be kind to yourself, be kind to people around you. Remember that we're all doing the best that we can with the tools that we currently have, and we're all capable of growing past that. If you'd like to reach out or connect, send me an email, brian@naplesintegratedrecovery.com. I hope to hear from you there. In the meantime, thanks again for listening. I'll see you on the next one.